It's really crazy that this show has continued to be as consistently good as it is, while still changing up the source material. I mentioned how much I liked the changes they made to the Medusa stuff in the previous episode. Again, they don't get into the roughest interpretation of the Medusa story, but they kind of find a happy medium between that and the conventional tellings of the story that allow for more nuance in the characters' history and actions. And I genuinely think it's better than what's done in the book. And just like that, I think that I like what they do in this episode. I Plummet to My Death, I think is what the title is. It's another variation of one of the chapter titles from the book. I like what they do here better than what the book does. Like, I still like what the book does. I want to be clear about that. But this is also really freaking good, and I think rounds out to be more interesting. I really like what one of you guys said in the comments of, I think it was the previous review, the Medusa one. It would have had to have been the Medusa one, because the subject matter. That just like the myths, this show is a different retelling of Percy Jackson. No more or less valid than the original, and the story is going to end up in roughly the same place. It's going to have similar themes, but the specifics are different because this is a different telling for a different generation, and focusing on different things. And I love that. I love that take. It's so good. Like I added my own interpretation of the take, I guess, onto there. Like, I expanded it a little bit. But, like, the gist of that comes from that comment. And it's a fantastic comment. I thank you for commenting that. I love that take. And honestly, it makes me feel a little bit better about some of the stuff that still isn't here from the books. Like, we still don't have Grover's reed pipes, for example. And there is a scene I really like from the book where the questers meet a poodle that has run away from home, and Grover's ability to talk to animals allows them to get help from the poodle, his owner. I don't remember the gender of the dog, I apologize. The dog's owner wants it back, and there's a $200 reward, and they're able to use that $200 to buy train tickets west and continue their quest from there. In this, they just got $200 from camp before they left. I assume that that's the money that they used to pay for this, or at least the remainder of it after everything else they bought so far. Because they start out on the train. And they kept a scene where Percy's looking out the window of the train and he sees centaurs running. And they do something brilliant with it. Like, I missed the scene with the dog, but it was during that scene, I think, I need to reread the book, but I'm pretty sure it was during that scene that we get Grover talking about Pan, the god of wild places, and how since he disappeared, humanity's kind of run rampant, destroying wild places, and now there's fewer and fewer of them. And they use that scene with the centaurs, which in the book was just a little bit of flavor to pass the time during a time skip on this train. They use that to insert the stuff about Pan, and with the detail that centaurs used to be really abundant, and now there's fewer of them because there's fewer wild places for them to run, which is excellent world building, a great way to roll those scenes into each other, and also frickin' heartbreaking, man. Like, holy crap. Like, I will freely admit that the books don't seem to care all that much about Grover's quest to restore Pan and therefore the wild places of the earth. And therefore it is a little hard for me to care about Grover's aforementioned quest as well. But, like, man, that went a long way towards making me care about his goals, man. It was really good. Very well done. There's also a lot of teasing between Percy and Annabeth in this one. I really like their dynamic here. It's really shaping up. We also get Annabeth describing how she was born and how she was treated by her father's family in this one, which is a very important moment from the book, scene from the book. And I think it was roughly here. Maybe it was even on the train. I don't remember, but I think it was roughly here in the book, and very well handled. Again, if I'm recalling correctly, she went a little easier on her dad in this version, mostly blaming her stepmom for everything that happened, but it still sounded like she had a really terrible time. Just was extremely segregated from the rest of her larger family and neglected, and that her dad didn't really do enough to prevent that from happening. And it really gets into how selfish Athena is in this series. Like, I wouldn't say Athena's evil. I wouldn't say she's like one of the bad gods or whatever. It's just she's arrogant and presumptuous and superior. And so she gives her children as gifts. And, like, the book kind of implied it, but this version, like, really insists that it's whether the giftee wants the child or not. It's just a thing she does. And, like, if we're talking about parents who shouldn't have kids, that, like, the kind of parent who treats a child like a commodity, like an object, definitely shouldn't have kids, right? And they go a step further in this by creating a really interesting juxtaposition. The plot of this one is that Echidna, the mother of monsters, brings the Chimera to hunt the trio. And we get a scene where she actually confronts them on the train before hunting them through St. Louis, which was very interesting. Because, again, she ends up with more of a character than she had in the book. It's clear that she's not just... Like she doesn't exist within this world simply as an obstacle for these kids to overcome. That she is a character with her own motivations and her own thoughts and opinions and her own perspective on this world. She is still in opposition to them, but she is an actual person now. And it worked very well, and I feel like I've seen her in something else. The actress who plays her, I really like her. I think she did a fantastic job. They also kept the Chimera taking the form of a Chihuahua before becoming the monster, which I thought was fantastic. Very cute dog. Also just a cool detail. So I of course enjoyed it. And again, it's a fantastic example of them rolling scenes from the book into each other and connecting them together so that these episodes flow better than they would otherwise, without actually detracting from the story that they're trying to tell and its parallels to the book version. And so in this version, because the Chimera starts hunting the kids before they visit the Arch, I don't remember why they visited the Arch in the book. Maybe it was just because Annabeth wanted to see it, because as a child of Athena, she has a very, very structured mind and really appreciates architecture and wants to be an architect. So maybe she just wanted to go there. I don't know. I don't remember. But in this one, the Arch is a temple of Athena. It's a monument to Athena made by one of her children. And so they go there knowing that Athena's power will prevent a monster from entering unless she gives them permission, and that they'll be safe from the Chimera there. And I already knew where they were going with that as soon as Annabeth said it, creating this really interesting opposite parallel to something that's going to happen with Percy in this one. Because at the end of the last episode, I didn't mention this in the review because I knew I was going to mention it later anyway for reasons. But at the end of the last episode, Percy, he says, because, you know, he basically showing off how far they've come to their parents, but really to kind of spit in their faces a little bit. He sends Medusa's head to Olympus. He mails it to Olympus using a postal service that Hermes provides. And he knows he's probably going to get negative reactions, but he doesn't care because he's, as he puts it, impertinent. And God, they tied this thing with the Chimera back into that. Athena, likely to try and save face in front of the other gods, I would imagine, feels that the best course of action to respond to the fact that her child didn't stop Percy from doing this thing that embarrassed her, she lets the Chimera into the temple so that it can corner them there in the arch. And like, that's just such a scummy thing to do, man. Like even overlooking the fact that one of these people is her literal child. That's a scummy thing to do. But then, like, is this unforgivable? This might be unforgivable. Putting your own child in such a dangerous situation, I think, makes you an unforgivably scummy person, frankly. We'll have to see, because we don't get a ton of Athena over the course of the series. But in the most recent book, there was a scene with Athena where I actually kind of liked her. I thought, hey, she's really like grown into a less just annoyingly objectionable person. So we'll have to see where this Athena stuff goes in this version. But anyway, that Chimera is there. Percy's been poisoned by one of its spines, and then they do something else. They make another change that I think is just brilliant. They're up in the arch, at the top of the arch, and in the book version, Percy is separated from Annabeth and Grover because they go up into the arch on an elevator, and he's the only one of the three that fits on the elevator for that trip. So he's up there with Echidna and the Chimera alone. And then the fight happens and part of the arch collapses and he falls. And the others realize something bad happened and go find him. In this version, they all make it up there. And Percy, dying of poison, knowing that he doesn't stand a chance, like in the book, it takes him fighting the Chimera first to realize he can't beat it. It's a very humbling experience for him. But he knows he can't beat it. Right from the start in this version, like you can tell. He essentially tricks Annabeth and Grover into leaving him there alone so that they can escape while he holds it off. Which means in this situation that Annabeth's mother put them in, Percy stays behind to give them a chance to escape, just like Thalia did. Which I don't think I've talked about Thalia, have I, in these reviews? She was effectively Annabeth's adopted big sister, and she died to give Annabeth a chance to get to camp. I might have mentioned her. And Zeus turns her into a tree as a way of sparing her from dying, instead of, sending down a lightning bolt to kill the thing that was about to kill her or something. It's another one of those examples of shitty parenting in this series. But it creates a parallel between that and what Percy does here that just adds so much more emotional weight to the scene. And it's so good. It's just so good. Between just how compelling this version of Echidna is and these few changes they made to really add more emotional weight to these scenes, this version's already so much better than the book version. Which is, again, not to say that the book version's bad. This is just better. And then Percy falls from the arch into the water below. And just like in the book, naiads are the water ones, right? The water nymphs, I think. It's dryads are the trees and naiads are the water nymphs. A naiad speaks to him and teaches him that he can exist underwater and breathe underwater, and that he's safe underwater because of the abilities afforded to him by his father. All he has to do is trust in him, and that and tells him that his father believes in him, and assures him that it's so hard for Poseidon not to reach out and help him more. And like, I still argue that Poseidon is not an ideal parent, even within the context of the gods in this series, because if it really is that difficult for him to interact with his demigod children because of the pact he made not to have anymore in the modern era, then he shouldn't have had a kid, because this has still negatively affected Percy his entire life. It's just not a good situation for him, but he is here. Percy is here. Poseidon did have a kid with Sally, and reaching out, in spite of the fact that it's extremely difficult for whatever reason for him to do so, trying his very best to be there for his child and to mend that relationship, that is one way to break an abusive cycle, a neglectful cycle. And this series is all about breaking cycles of abuse, whether abuse of your children or abuses of power. And so this is one way of portraying something like that. It's up to the kid in that situation whether or not they are willing to forgive and reach back. And Percy, being the kind of person he is willing to do so, and he discovers that he can breathe underwater, and I also assume that he's going to be healed of the injuries he sustained fighting the Chimera, and of the poison, thanks to the water as well. And that completes the juxtaposition between Annabeth's situation and his own. Annabeth trusted her mom completely. She was sure that they would be safe in the arch. And Athena let her down. Percy doesn't trust his father, rightfully so. He doesn't have blind faith in his father because his father has neglected him and Sally for so long. But he is a kind enough person, a forgiving enough person to accept Poseidon's apology effectively when Poseidon reaches out. And which he does, despite the fact that Percy up to this point has not had any faith in him at all. Has not worshipped him at all. Their situations are basically exactly opposite. And it's going to be so interesting to see how exactly this unfolds. But it's going to make the transition of these kids from questmates to found family all the more impactful as that continues to happen. There was also a line of dialogue in this episode. I don't remember if there's a parallel in the book or not. I don't remember there being one if there is, but it hit me really hard. Because for those who don't know, these first 5 books are all about stopping the gods from being overthrown by the Titans, like Kronos and Atlas and all them, the gods that came before the gods, basically. And we don't know, like, we haven't been told that that's what it is yet in this series. We didn't know that that's what it was yet in the book either. But Annabeth does say something that's applicable to that situation. Something about, like, the gods may kind of suck, but at least with them you know the rules. Like, Athena then just immediately breaks one of those rules by letting a monster into one of her temples, but that's beside the point. In the end, it is the right choice for the heroes to side with the gods over the Titans, specifically because the Titans are chaotic and they care even less about humanity than the gods do, and they're an unknown factor. At the very least, the gods are the devil you know, right? And I thought that was very interesting. Like, I can totally imagine there being callbacks to that line in later seasons of this show as that plot starts to rear itself. This is just a fantastic episode. It was... The more I think about it, because, again, I don't write out a script for these reviews. I write out notes, and, like, then I tend to ramble as the different bullet points that I wrote down remind me of other stuff. The more I think about this episode, though, like, it's extremely good. Like, I almost feel like I need to watch it for a third time right freaking now, because it's just so good. And I feel like there's probably stuff in here that I'm missing still, even after the 2 viewings that I sat through to put this review together. If you're on the fence about this show still, like, what, like, depending on whether or not you look at the premiere as one long episode or 2 separate ones, we're like 3 or 4 episodes in. So, like, that's not a ton. Watch up to this point. If this episode doesn't sell you on this show, then I just don't think you're gonna like it. Though, continuing how this show has been getting progressively better as it goes, maybe later episodes are gonna be even better. In which case, just watch the show. Just watch the show. There will be an episode that hooks you. I'm fairly sure. At some point. I just can't imagine a version of a human being, though, that wouldn't just be hooked by this show in general, because it takes the themes of the kids book series and not only expands upon them and not only translate them to a visual medium, which is way easier for people to, like, relate to and read into and be, like, empathetic towards the characters in than, like, something like the written word. There's a little bit of a separation there that, like, it's just easier to read difficult stuff happening, rough stuff happening, than it is to see it, right? It not only brings that stuff into this other medium where it's guaranteed to be taken more seriously. It not only says something really poignant, but it does it in style, and it does it without once betraying the source material. It's fantastic. And I think perfectly appropriate for the whole family. This is just something you could sit down with the whole family and enjoy together. As per usual, though, before I find a 7th way to say that this show is amazing, what did you think of this episode? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't, and also check out the video description for links to my various social medias, as well as to a link to where you can purchase my first 3 books, which are for sale still. Either way, though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.